Well, the business community and the social welfare sector are among those who've been watching tonight's budget very closely. With me are the Chief Executive of the Business Council of Australia, Jennifer Westacott, and the Head of the Australian Council of Social Services, Dr. Cassandra Goldie. Thank you very much to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
Jennifer Westacott, I'll start with you. What impact do you see this budget having on business confidence?
Well, we were hoping that this budget would be a big confidence booster for the business community, and we just can't see the measures that will deliver on that. I mean, the government's effectively not delivered its own fiscal strategy, and all the work now remains to be done. We're effectively being asked to believe that a budget approach that hasn't worked in the past is going to work now. So we have some doubts about the surplus, which is very important. Getting back into a sustainable fiscal position is very important for business confidence. It's a little bit of muddling through, and of course there are some tax changes which we might want to talk about that are really going to create more of a sense of an unpredictable tax system. So, you know, it isn't what we expected or what we needed to really boost business confidence.
I'll come back to the tax changes in a moment. Firstly, Cassandra Goldie, what do you see in this budget for people who are doing it tough?
Well, look, we were delighted, of course, to see the government do the hard work to make sure that we had at least a framework for funding the disability care. Dental reform has also been really important. That's in the budget, and also the education reforms. They're all very, very important, and we do back what the Treasurer has done in starting to do the hard work on the revenue base. So some of the arrangements around the abolition of the medical expenses tax offset, we back that one. Also the changes to the threshold on the Medicare safety net. However, the gaping hole for us is the failure to act on increasing the unemployment payment, which is just so low. It's unbearable. It's one of the major reasons that we have a growing rate of poverty in Australia, and we cannot believe that we don't have the increase that we all agreed. Business community agreed that it was seriously overdue, and on a productivity front as well as a poverty front, we just haven't had the action we needed.
Something you may have expected a Labor government would deliver?
Well, we would have expected a government at this time to see to help, which, if not this budget, Lee, when?
Jennifer Westacott, you mentioned some of the tax changes that you thought would concern business. Which ones?
Well, the changes to the thin capitalisation rules are obviously going to really deter foreign investment. They're going to make it difficult to attract companies in Australia. I mean, they really don't come to terms with the fact that we live in a very competitive world, but it's the sort of principle of more ad hoc, incremental tax changes as opposed to a fundamental review of the tax system, which Cassandra and I both agree about. And, you know, we've missed another opportunity. We've squandered another budget to do proper tax reform. And what we've got is just we're constraining our choices for the future. And that I'd love to be sitting here tonight with you and saying, you know, we've got an increase to the New Start allowance, but we can't because we haven't done the hard work on an audit of government spending, on a reprioritisation and on tax reform to make room for these things.
It's interesting, often when you do these interviews, you find that the business community is asking for something different to the social services sector, but you're both in agreement on some of the things that you would have liked to see the budget deliver, but it hasn't come through on.
Look, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure when we get into the detail of tax reform, there'll be some points of departure. That's inevitable, but we've both said we're up for it because we know that we don't have the kind of revenue stream we will need into the future. Obviously, for us, the unemployment was a major gap. We believe we could have found the money in the budget, and I think some of the areas like private discretionary trusts, I mean, the government's put some money into us looking at the tax evasion part of that, but we could have gone further in shutting some of those tax loopholes down to fund this really important poverty measure.
Do you agree with that, Jennifer Westacott?
Well, I think what you needed to do was, the government's had a long time to de-risk the budget, if you will, and to make room for things that everyone knew was coming, and this was one of them. NDIS and Gonski, we can come back to that. That's good to see those long-term forecasts. But other things are coming, the ageing of the population, the burgeoning health costs. You know, what we have been saying is that the government needed to do, and should still do, a full audit on the scope, size, efficiency of government so that we can say, what are we spending our money on? How do we make room for these things? And we need to do tax reform. We need to make sure that we've got the revenues to pay for the future and that we've got a tax system that's competitive. We can't keep putting these things off, and every budget that we've been seeing has put them off again.
Cassandra Goldie, the abolition of the baby bonus will no doubt get some attention. What's your view on that?
Well, look, we had recommended that the government get rid of the baby bonus, but put all of that money into the family tax payment system to get a boost, particularly for the lowest income families. And that's not quite what we've got tonight. So whilst we agree with the principle of what they've done, we are still concerned that for the poorest families, they will have less for their first baby and for their second and subsequent children. So for us, we've got to have a focus on the families who are doing it really hard. The really poor families in Australia should be our top priority. And that's why we agree with with the business community about saying tax reform is important. The Henry Tax Panel work was really considered. We shouldn't have been ruling it all out. It should have all been on the table, so that we can have an open discussion as a country about what size of government do we need, what should be universal services, and what should be well targeted. And I do agree that we don't have a clear framework out of this budget. Whilst having said that, obviously some of the tax savings we believe are really important and we support them.
Cassandra, Goldie, Jennifer Westacott, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks very much.